Welcome to my studio. I have a 2-car garage that we finished into a studio space for me. Over here I have an IKEA Kallax. I have all my books and magazines here. My most favorite quilting books are free motion quilting books, reference guides, lots of different inspiration. The center area of my studio is my main workspace with my cutting table, ironing board, and my sewing machine. I sew on an early 80s Viking. It's a Viking 6690. My mom worked at the Viking Center when I was young and bought the machine new. It's the machine that I learned to sew on when I was young. I'm always working on more than one project at a time. The design wall is a great example of that. This center section on the design wall are my parts for my B block for Charles Cameron. He has provided us a photo or a section of a photo to recreate with fabric. So you might notice that there's a portion of a door and window and some bricks to the right. The bricks are my favorite part. And then up here I've made my first block for Patty Dudek. She's given us a prompt to make a series of little 6-inch blocks. This blue fabric she provided for us, so that will be a feature throughout her quilt. Over on the right, I always have just some improv pieces, things I've played with or blocks I've made in class. This house block was created after I made a quilt top with house blocks that have a lighter turquoise background. I have an Innova M20 long arm. It's pretty new to me. And the first quilt that I quilted on the long arm was just recently in the San Mateo County Fair. So I'm thinking about what to load next. And this tic-tac-toe block quilt on the right is probably the next thing that I'm gonna load onto the long arm. I'm not sure how I want to quilt it yet. And then this other piece that's currently laying on the long arm was initially a 100-day project where I made these blocks from my scrap bin. Each day I made one little 4-inch block. So at the end of the 100 days, I had a pile of blocks. And then recently my guild had a 100-day challenge and I chose to take those blocks and work on turning them into a quilt top. I didn't quite get to a finished quilt top, but I got all the sashing added to the blocks. I have my cutting table here kind of in the center of the room for a couple reasons. It's a big room, so it's close by the sewing machine. And then also I can move the second table that's currently behind it, is on casters, so I can roll that out of the way if I need to stand on the opposite side of my cutting table for something. Underneath my cutting table, I have a cart, a Raskog cart from IKEA, where I have lots of odds and ends. Notions are in the top level, scissors, pins, other things. My small trash can is where I put my tiny little schnibbles of, scrap fabrics, anything that's really too small to use. I always have lots of projects out. These blue fabrics on the left are my fabrics that I'm using for that B block that you saw on my design wall that I'm making for Charles. And this other bin is this month's round robin that I'm working on with my guild. If I walk around to the other side, this table is just housing a few more projects. So I have all of the fabrics I'm using for the Frightful Fun paper-pieced Halloween quilt. That was a block of the month that I'm just doing at my own pace. And then the navy blue fabric is the sashing for the pile of blocks that are underneath there. These are Tula Pink City Sampler blocks. And then I have an improv letter project that I'm working on here. If you've taken improv piece letters with me, you've seen some of these letters. And then next to that, I have a baking rack, and my baking rack has a cover to keep things mostly dust-free, and I have a lot of other projects on here. So this is part of how I organize my projects. So the green blocks are a pile of B blocks. The other blocks on the top level are blocks that I started in a class with Rossi Hutchinson, and there's just a variety of different things on the tray. This corner next to the couch and this desk are my mixed media corner. Lots of odds and ends. Anything painting, drawing, paper collage is over there. The desk was actually a woodshop project that my dad made in 7th grade. So I really enjoy that I get to use that desk. I have a computer desk, often untidy, blocks left from teaching and notes and tools. This is where I sit if I'm giving a Zoom lecture. If you've seen me on Zoom, you've probably seen the view of my long arm in the background or my design walls, depending on where this table is actually positioned when I'm lecturing. So here's a peek inside my PAX wardrobes. They are 39 inches wide and about 22 inches deep, so there's tons of storage space. The shelves are filled with class samples, fabric, yarn, batting scraps, lots of piles of projects in progress or fabric pulls that were put together and will become a project at some point. Underneath my shelves, I have 2 pull-out trays. So these are very short drawers. So there's lots of flat storage. So I keep my acrylic rulers here. And then below that, I have my fabric that is print fabric. Most of my fabrics read as a single color. So I mostly buy blender fabrics when I buy print fabrics. So I've organized by color. I have them in these clear bins from the Container Store. So I like that I can just pull out a bin to be able to sort through and find what I need. And I've arranged in rainbow order. So here are the greens, blues, and purples with some multicolored rainbow prints. And then my bottom drawer is all black and white prints. A few more multicolor prints here. My top section is all my scraps. So I have bins that again are organized by color because most of my fabrics read as a single color. So I like that I can just tuck the scraps in through the open handle. So I just open up my cabinet doors and I can easily access my bins to put scraps away. My pull-out tray in this cabinet has all my thread. I primarily piece and quilt with RFL 50 weight. And then the drawers on this side are all my solid fabrics. So again, I've organized by color. I keep my solid scraps with my yardage. So the fronts of the bins are all the scraps. So the greens and blues with some neutrals. And then the bottom drawer has purples, and then it also has kind of the fabrics that are different than your main quilting cottons. Thank you so much for joining me for my studio tour. I'm Sarah Goer of Sarah Goer Quilts. I'm real easy to find. My website is sarahgoerquilts.com, and you can find me as Sarah Goer Quilts on both Instagram and Facebook. Click on the Teaching tab at the top of the page for information on how to hire me to visit your guild.
Okay, and here we are with Sarah herself. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah Goer. I'm in San Jose, California. I've been teaching for guilds since 2017, I think. You can find me at sarahgoerquilts.com or under Sarah Goer Quilts on Instagram or Facebook. And I'm teaching for guilds on Zoom and in person, and also spending a lot of time in my studio.
Right, and we join you here in your studio, which is your garage, right?
That is true.
And thank you so much for showing us around. It's an amazing space. And you've got some things in the background that I'd love to start with. If we kind of go from left to right, tell us about the Viking machine that you learned on and you're still using.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my mom worked at the Viking Center in San Jose. And so I have fond memories of just hanging out in the shop. I kind of don't understand why I was at work with her, but I can remember going to the diner next door and having a grilled cheese at the counter, and then, being in the shop and, rifling through the button bin to pick out buttons. So she bought this machine new in the early 80s. And I don't remember not knowing how to sew. So I grew up, I was an only child for the first 8.5 years. So I was always at my mother's foot, and she spent a lot of time in her sewing room. And so I learned how to use the machine when I was very young. And then she had eventually upgraded to a new machine. And so I got this machine. And so it's old, but it does everything that I need it to do. I know new machines have bells and whistles that I don't have, but yeah, you can actually see the second one. I have two Viking 6690s because at one point my dad wanted this machine back to work on a project, and I was like, Dad, I sew on it every day. And he said, I'll just get you another machine. And so what we ended up doing was picking up a used 6690 because I felt like I already knew how to use the machine. When my kids were young, it was nice to be able to both be sewing at the same time. I would put the second machine on the low table for them to use. And now I figure at some point I will have to use one as parts for the other.
Right. But oh, what a lovely image of you sewing with your kids. That's lovely. And it just goes to show what workhorses these older machines are. And as long as you keep them tuned and maintained and the occasional squirt of oil, they'll just keep going and going. So yeah. And then the next thing on the left is your design wall. So what is that made from?
Yeah, so I have two 4 foot wide by 8 foot tall design walls. So they're side by side right now. And they are 2-inch thick foam insulation board from Home Depot. And they're just covered with a piece of batting. So I like the batting. Some people like flannel. I like batting because it's real clingy. Like everything that you can see that's on the design wall is just up there with clinging to the batting. It's not pinned usually. And I've just duct taped it around the backside to hold the batting on. In the room that I was in before I moved down here, I was in a bedroom that had a big window and a 2-door closet and a door to the room in the middle. And then, so there was nowhere to put them permanently. So it's kind of nice that I just lean them against, I could lean them in front of the closet. And then if I needed to get into the closet, I would move them and lean them in front of the window temporarily. I have visions now that I have more space down here to build a rack on casters so that they could be like, you might be able to tell that they're a little bit bowed since they're leaning against the wall. But I'd like to put them on casters and then I could move them around and then I'd be able to, have them be closer to me as a backdrop if I'm on Zoom, or I could move them to, a different part of my studio. But right now they're just leaning against the wall.
Oh, what an amazing idea, though, to have them like that.
And fairly low budget as far as putting together a design.
Yeah, brilliant idea.
And I fit the two 4 foot by 8 foot 2-inch wide, 2-inch thick insulation boards in my minivan to bring home from Home Depot because they have a little bend to them.
Okay, well, that's
down the back seats and fit them in the minivan to get them home.
Oh, cunning. Okay, right, lovely. And then, of course, what dominates the background there is your Innova M20. So, how long have you had that machine?
Yeah, so not too long. I spent a little bit of time practicing on it. I've probably had it in my studio for a little less than 2 years. And I would like to be using it more regular than I have been using it. But I did a bunch of practice work on it. And then I put on my first project. It was just 1.5 yards of fabric, but I did some pretty detailed hand-driven free motion quilting. So I don't have a computer on my long arm. I wanted it specifically to do hand-guided free motion. I may get into ruler work at some point, but and I'm only planning to quilt my own quilts currently. So
it's an amazing machine. What prompted you? Because I know a lot of people think about getting one and then hesitate to take the plunge, but what decided you?
Yeah, I mean, I think space was the biggest, hurdle for me because I was in a room that I couldn't have put a long arm in. And so, we talked about it and I said, well, I either have to wait till both kids go to college and knock down the wall between their rooms, or I need to take over a living room, which wasn't exciting for my family of 4. Or we needed like a backyard structure, or I take over the garage. And so we decided I would take over the garage. And so I have a 10-foot frame. I don't make terribly large quilts, so I opted to not do a 12-foot frame. And kind of out of vision here is my mixed media corner. And so if my long arm frame had been any bigger, that corner of space wouldn't have been usable. So I'd rented time on long arms at a local shop for probably 4 or 5 quilts. And that was all pre-pandemic. So that was probably in 2018, 2019. So that gave me a chance to, use a long arm and see if I really liked doing it. I knew I liked the idea of it. And then I also took a long arm class at QuiltCon, and that was probably 2019 also. And so, so I'd had like, you know, enough time on a long arm to know, yeah, this is great. And then the other part is that renting time on the long arm meant that I would go and I would quilt the whole time I had between dropping the kids off to school and picking them up. And so I wouldn't take a break for lunch, and I, you know, would take just a really quick stretch break. And that's not the best way to use a long arm. If you're going to stand at a long arm, it's better to, you know, have some breaks. So here now I can like stitch for a while, and then I can, you know, do something else in my studio or something else in my house, and come back to it later in the day instead of, you know, trying to get something started and finished in a short period of time. And then that also allows me to do more detailed work, because when I was renting time, I kind of had to do, you know, get her done quilting, because I had a certain amount of time.
No, I've experienced that myself.
And then I had, we used to have Pacific International Quilt Festival here in Santa Clara. And so for years, I mean, I've been quilting for almost 25 years. And so for years, I would visit the long arms at PIQF every year. And so pretty early on, I decided that I wanted an Innova from just like, you know, checking out all the machines. And so that was, you know, when it came time for me to make the decision to buy one, I'd already decided on the brand that I wanted to purchase.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, brilliant. And then something else I know that I definitely want to ask about is your baking rack system. Yeah, which is extraordinary. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was not my idea, but someone on the internet had the idea to use this baking rack. And, you know, I have full sheet pan size, you know, racks or trays on the rack. And then on each of these trays, I have the pieces for a different project. And so I've, you know, it gave me more storage at a time before I had some of the other storage solutions that I have. And I have a plastic cover on it, so it keeps dust out. And I can just pull out a tray and like put the whole tray out on a flat surface, you know, on a table to like get to what I'm working on. But yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant. And you just got it? Where did you get it from?
I ordered it from a restaurant supply company. I don't know which at this point, but
oh, fascinating. Oh, well, I'll look one up and put it in the notes underneath the video, because I'm sure there's going to be others that will want to do that kind of thing. And then finally, I think we come on to scraps. So there's always a big debate, like what size scraps do you keep and what do you get rid of? Because I loved the way with your solid fabrics, you were keeping the scraps with the yardage. I thought that was really clever. But what's too small?
Yeah, so I talk to students about this a lot, because we use scraps in workshops, and I talk about using scraps when I lecture, and I say we all have a threshold for what scrap is too small. Some people don't want to deal with anything smaller than a 2.5-inch square. Well, then don't save anything. If you don't save anything smaller than a 2.5-inch square. If that's how you feel, then, you know, those pieces that are smaller might be usable to someone else. So you might have someone you can pass them along to. And usually in a guild, I say, you know, usually everybody in the guild knows who likes to use small pieces. And, you know, someone will say, oh yeah, it's Irene, you know, like they know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so sometimes there's someone you can pass them on to in the guild, but I will keep a pretty small scrap. So I say the more I like the fabric, the smaller scrap I'm willing to keep. So I will keep a scrap that is, I mean, 3/4 of an inch wide strip if I really like the fabric, because I could still piece it into something and have a 1/4 inch showing. Right. But I have to really love the fabric to keep something that small. But I keep pretty small scraps in general, and I try to use them. So I have, you saw in the video, I have, you know, scrap bins that I keep my printed fabric scraps in. And that's, you know, not a huge amount of space. It's maybe a little bit bigger than a shoebox for each color. And so, you know, if it starts getting full, if it's hard to put more scraps in, I know it's time to start making a project with scraps. So like this project that's currently draped over my long arm is, you know, made up of scraps from the teal bin, because the teal bin was getting pretty full. So,
right, and we saw a beautiful glimpse of that in the video. Thank you for showing us. Yeah.
And then as far as my solid fabrics, so when I first started using solid fabrics, I didn't have very many, and so I kept the tiniest, littlest, ittiest, bittiest scraps, because they were precious, because I didn't have very much solid fabric, and so that was like the beginning of that habit. And I, you know, pretty much continue to just throw all the solid scraps together. I co-run an improv quilt bee with my friend Ellen Zinsmeister, and we use all solids. And so I am, always digging into the solid bins. Like every month it's a new color palette. And because I'm just making one block or one piece for someone usually, or maybe a few small blocks like Patty's here, I can use scrap size pieces. And so I keep the solid scraps with the solid fabrics, because if I'm using solids, that's what I want to start with is, the bin of that color.
Sure. No, it made great sense. I thought it was awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for talking to us and for showing us your studio. And just remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is Sarah Goer Quilts. My name has an H at the end, so that's SARAHGOER quilts, all one word, .com. And I am on Instagram and Facebook under Sarah Goer Quilts.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Makers. Today I'm going to give you a little tour of my craft room. There's Dolly. She's wanting some attention. Say hello, Dolly. She's very annoyed that I'm not picking her up right now. So I have only been in this room since January. This was my daughter's room, and when she completely moved out, I switched my craft room, which was down the hall, with this room because I wanted the room with better light. And it's directly across from my office, and now the guest room is right next to the guest bathroom. So it's still a bit of a work in progress. I'm still figuring out how the workflow works for me and where to store all the things because it is slightly smaller. But this is my main work area here. I have my cutting table. Underneath trays are works in progress. The little drawers with the little boxes, that's all of my floss and pearl cottons. And it also is a couple of larger works in progress that are taking some time, so they get a box because they're taking up a lot of room. Over here is my main work table. You can see it has my camera up there. This is where I record all of my videos. And I have my little iron there, some clutter in the corner. Then this little tower holds my pens. That's my Ireland quilt in that box. All my notions that I need to have close by. This is my ironing station while I'm sewing. I do have an ironing board. I just don't know quite where to put it. So I pull it out when I need to iron larger things, but otherwise it just stays in my closet. And then this is my sewing station. So I have my sewing machine and some of the things that I need here. Some more lighting for cameras and filming. This little teapot is actually a pin cushion, and I put scraps in here as I'm sewing. My cat likes to eat the pins, so I have to hide them from her. See, here she comes to check it out. So when I'm in this area, if I turn this way, that is my wall of patterns that I sell. My wool is that section furthest on the left. My lace and ribbons and rickrack at the top, that's my yardage. And then I have ribbons and fat quarters and those little white buckets. Now, in this corner over here, it's kind of a mess, but that is my extra sewing machine. It always has just white thread. It just does a straight stitch. So if I have colored thread in my main machine and I just need to piece something really quickly and I don't want to change the color, then I come here and I can use this machine. It's got kind of a bunch of just junk stacked in the corner. That's the template for the butterfly, and there's a quilt that I need to take to be donated. I have this little rack where I do have some pretty quilts under there, but really it ends up just being the little catch-all for all of my fabrics that I'm using and projects that aren't quite finished. All right, so now we're back over here. We'll just walk straight. Down here are my just different craft supplies. This is usually where Dolly is sleeping, in this director's chair that I got a long time ago from a very sweet group of dance team officers. And I think I've had it for over 20 years. But it's a perfect little chair for Dolly to sit in, or when my husband comes in here to just hang out and talk to me, he likes to sit there. Also, messy bags just hanging. That's my normal bag that's filled with stuff for classes and projects. This is my closet, and I will show you how it's organized. So there's my ironing board. Over here are my collage scraps right there in the center in those little bins. Below are all of my regular fabric scraps. The ones in the colors are organized by those colors, and the ones in the white have the labels to tell me what colors are in those bins. So that's your neutrals and aqua, which gets its own section because I have lots of turquoise and aqua scraps, my favorite color. Craft supplies are kind of hanging out there behind the iron. These are kits, yarn, more larger works in progress, or supplies for classes, so I can just grab the bin and go. This is where I hang my quilt blocks and my mini quilts as I'm working on them, so they stay nice and pressed and don't get all wrinkled. All right, so up here I do have a couple of acoustic tiles so I can pin things that I need out of the way up there as I'm working on them. This is my design wall, and it is made from acoustic tiles from Amazon. It does not hold fabric like a regular design wall, so I do have to use pins to hold things, so it doesn't have the felt, or it's not as fuzzy to grip fabric, but it works for me and it's cute and makes me happy. This is where all of my threads are. So all of my threads are here on the back of my door. I have a lot of them, but it keeps them in those pretty little rows and kind of out of the way. My messy bulletin board of things I'm working on and some patterns. And then that's my backup cutting mat that I use for collage. So collage and steam seam can be very sticky, so I have a separate cutting mat. It's an old cutting mat that I use for that. Here is my full studio. Oh yeah, up here at the top I have just a bunch of little mini quilts that just kind of I've made over the years that just make me happy. This is where I make all the things. Like I said, I've only been in here for about 6 months, so I'm still getting used to it, still figuring out what works for me. And now there's Dolly in her spot. So with that, I hope this has inspired you and given you some ideas for your own sewing space. Now go make something beautiful.
Hi there. Well, here we are with Lynn Christiansen herself. Lynn, wonderful to have you here, and thank you so much for recording that tour of your studio and for the spotlight on Dolly, the cat, who was very welcome and was utterly adorable. I did love that you had to hide your pins from her. So does she like, what does she do? Does she chew on them, or does she chase them, or what is it?
I'm not 100% certain because I don't let her play with it too long when I notice her doing it. But she basically just pulls them out of the pin cushion and then just drops them. So she just likes, because they have that rubbery pin. So I think she likes rubbery things, and she chews on like plastic and rubber. Oh, she's special. Yeah. And she just likes to pull them out, and then she drops them, and then I would have pins everywhere. Then I was worried that she would try to chew on them more and, poke herself. So yeah, I had to hide my pins from her when I'm not using them.
That teapot is just such a good idea. And then keeping your little scraps in there as well. Now, are those scraps that you're going to keep, or are those the ones that are destined for discarding?
So they are ones that I give to my friend Laura. Mm-hmm. So in my Quilt Bee, we actually have several levels of discarding of scraps. Laura, we give our kind of bigger pieces to.
Mm-hmm.
And then my friend Michelle, who's also in the bee, collects like the tiny crumbs because she makes catnip pillows.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so I try to keep the kind of larger pieces in the teapot, and then I have another little bag for Michelle. I have like several little scrap bags, and then when they get full, I take them and I give them to my friends who then Laura loves making tiny scrappy quilts and Michelle turns hers into catnip pillows. So that's what
Oh,
goes in the teapot. They're the scraps that then go to Laura.
adorable. I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. And then, of course, we saw that in your studio, you've got two machines. And I know the first one was a Bernina. Tell me about that one.
So that machine I've had for just a couple of years. Her name is Gladys. I bought her used. I bought her from Maddie from the Badass Quilter, and
Mhm.
Gladys is the mascot. So she has a little Gladys sticker, and her name is Gladys. And she's my main machine. Like she's the one that does most of my quilting, most of my piecing. And then the other machine is a brother machine. It's a Nouvelle. I can't remember the number of it, but that's Nova Lee. She's my workhorse. She's like my factory worker. She just does a straight stitch. She's all metal, kind of a heavy duty machine. So when I have to do things with really thick layers, like bags, she does those a little bit better. And then she just kind of sits there. You saw that she just had stuff piled all over her that she doesn't get used as often. But
Hmm.
if I'm got a colored thread in the Bernina and I'm just like, I just need to do this one little stitch and I don't want hot pink, then I'll go to Nova Lee and Nova Lee does my quick little piecing sometimes or mending.
Yeah, I love that idea because I know a lot of people have more than one machine. Like they'll have one that's just for retreats or something that they travel with, which is often lighter and might only do the more simple stitches. And so I love that idea of having one set up with the white thread, that's just ready to go. So wonderful. And of course, you had all this great furniture in your studio as well. And one of the things I noticed was a husky table. And it looked like it was height adjustable as well and had some drawers on it. Now, is that a sewing table or like where did that come from?
No, so that is actually a workbench. We
Ah,
got it either from Home Depot or Lowe's. We got it several years ago, so I don't remember. But it has a little crank on the side and I can lift it and lower it. So if I wanted to make it, if I wanted to sit, I
mm-hmm.
could lower it and sit at it. It actually, I have a second one in my office, and that's what I use as a desk,
Oh,
is my Husky table,
fantastic.
because I like being able to make it go up and down for like
Of
Zoom
course.
calls.
Yes.
But
I
yeah, it
have
works really
that.
great because you can make it the right height. I'm kind of short, so sometimes cutting tables are too tall for me,
Mm.
but
Okay,
yeah,
brilliant.
it's a great table.
Oh yeah, that is a fantastic idea. I have a height adjustable desk that I'm sitting at now, and I certainly will stand at it sometimes to ease up my hips and so on. But it hadn't occurred to me to use it as a cutting table as well, and that's a great tip if the normal cutting tables are too tall as well. Okay, wonderful. And then you also had a table that your Benina dropped into as
Yes.
well, and I noticed Dolly was sitting on the kind of fold out arm of it. So I guess it must be quite strong. Where did
Yeah,
that one
so
come
it's
from?
it's one of those cabinets. I can't remember the brand. I actually also bought that used from a friend
Mm-hmm.
like 12 or more years ago. And it's one of those
Fascinating.
that you can fold everything up. It actually has an extension behind my sewing machine that I can lift up so it is actually even wider.
Oh wow! So it'll take the weight if you're quilting a big quilt on the sit down machine. Oh, wonderful. Okay,
Yeah,
lovely.
it gets really big. But yeah,
That's so
Dolly
convenient.
likes to hang out. Like if I have that up, she loves to be there. But if not, then she's on the other part.
And I love that director's chair as well that she shares with your partner, and either one of them can sit there and commune with you. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I wanted to touch on those felt acoustical tires because I am a big hexagon fan, with the English paper piecing and just in general life. And they particularly caught my eyes. Where are they from?
So those are from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought them because I was seeing like everybody using the felt tiles and I wanted hexagons.
Yeah.
And so I looked up acoustic tiles. So that's what you look for, just acoustic tiles. They have a sticky back.
Mm-hmm.
So you just peel the back off and you can just stick them to the wall.
Amazing.
And yeah, I got two. I think they came in certain packs. I had to get several packs because there weren't quite enough in just like one pack. I think is only 10, something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So we measured the wall and then we kind of figured out, and then I had to have the turquoise in there because that's my favorite color.
Absolutely. I know. And I love that you had your turquoise bin for fabrics as well, just because that is so much of a special one for you. Well, those are great. I will find all these things online and put links to them in the notes underneath. And just loved how you had everything set up with all the different bins for things and the see-through boxes as well. It's just, and you can see the arrangement behind you is just beautiful. So your aesthetic is chef's kiss.
Oh,
Lovely.
thank you. I have to be organized. I can't, like, if I'm in the middle of working and in a flow and I need to grab a tool, it's got to be where I can just grab it. If I have to hunt for things, I lose my focus. So,
Gosh, I wish I was the same. I was hunting for quilt clips yesterday to do some felt things. And I was just lifting up all these different things that are all on the surfaces in my studio at the moment. So I still have my tidying to do before I can do my one of these videos. Well, look, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And where can people find you?
so they can find me at emeraldfallsquilts.com. That is my website. And then Emerald Falls Quilts on YouTube and most social media. Instagram is a little different. It's emerald_falls_quilts. So it has underscores. But everything else, just look for Emerald Falls Quilts. That's
Excellent. And we'll put all your contact details in the notes under the YouTube video as well. Thank you so much for this. It has been wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hi there, my name is Byrne and this is my studio. Now, some of you might remember that I filmed a before video a little while ago. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. I thought I could carry on tidying and then thought that I'd never actually convince anyone that it was always this tidy. So here we go. In the doorway, you kick off with this lovely little vintage wreath that I made. Which is all these sewing supplies. Then we've got an ice-dyed apron up here and a work in progress, which is this shirt that I was covering in Japanese fabric. There's a round robin waiting to be returned on the door handle. The bags are still there, but hey, they're a bit more tidy. I've got my threads up on the wall here. I absolutely love having them here in a kind of rainbow. There's a few empty spaces at the moment. It's all the kind of regular sewing thread at the top, and then all the kind of variegated or metallic stuff along the bottom. And then I've got, I'm always picking up bits and pieces at our guild's free table, which is where those Madeira threads all came from. And then this is a piece of art that I found at the bottom of a free bin at a creative reuse place. And it's not my work, but I absolutely love it. It just, there's numero uno Cato joining us there with her meowing. There she is, a special segment on Charlotte. Hello. She's not usually very keen on being on camera, but there we go. She's stuck around for longer than usual. She's clearly decided it's lunchtime, even though it's barely 11 o'clock. Over here we have my planning board for my business, and there's the ubiquitous cart that everybody has in their studio. Along here we've got, of course, grocery bags. What else does one use grocery bags for? Each one is a collection of fabric for a different project. I do have a lot of unfinished projects. I have ADHD, neurodivergent, and so there's always a lot to be done. Here I am in a unique position for me of having two sewing machines. This one I just found at a thrift store yesterday, Janome DC 2019. It didn't have a power cord and the thread was jammed. So I had to do a little bit of DIY, but it's in perfect order apart from that. It was only $25. So this is going to be my kind of straightforward piecing machine. And then at a quilt show a few years ago, well, probably about 8 years ago now, if not more, I got my Janome 6600 memory craft, which does a few little bits and pieces. It's got a big neck for just table quilting. It's got a built-in walking foot, which is what's there at the moment. I would love to get a machine with a stitch regulator, but it's not quite in my budget at the moment. And then this little thing is a pincushion I made with some elastic to go around there, which saves me from keeping quite as many pins in my mouth. I also have a piece of sticky measuring tape, basically, stuck to the table. And I've got another one on my desk and another one on the table in the living room. They're just so useful. Here we have my sew together bag, which I just taught recently, but that's the one I actually use. And of course, I've got a wool cutting mat with, a wool pressing mat with another cutting mat underneath. And this little tower here is where I put my laptop when I'm filming. And that sashiko on the top of the box there. In fact, I made the box and you put the sashiko fabric and the actual sashiko on it. And then, of course, we've got other little camera holders and things. This is my design wall. It's a Fons and Porter design wall. It's basically just a sheet. The grid is printed on the other side, and then the front is kind of fleecy. It works okay. I don't think they make them anymore, which was probably a wise decision. And then along the top there, you'll see that we've got a curtain pole. This is ingenious. This was an idea from Lorraine Woodruff Long, I think, who uses these clips to hang things. These are effectively shower curtain clips. And I've got more of them, and so I can just swap out whatever I want to be on there. And I had the Red and White Lucy English paper pieced quilt on there, which is a particular love of mine, English paper piecing and the Red and Lucy Boston herself. We've got my desk, which is very messy. In fact, it's hardly not messy at all at the moment by my standards, but the 2 monitors is something I learned when I was working in an engineering company, and it is very useful. We've got my little pin board. I want to make sure I point out the salami here. This is a felt salami. That's all to do with how to tackle big projects, which I will go into one day. We have, of course, got a cat tree. The bottom shelf broke under Charlotte's weight some time ago, even though she's not actually a big cat at all. And so I have a breadboard I intend to drill a hole in and screw on there. That was some small piece of wood I found, but it's not big enough. I've got my lovely view of next door's roof, and this little corner is where this house sparrows were fledging just yesterday. It was very exciting, see them wobbling about. And then this monster here, which is one piece of furniture, this is what's it called? A create room or something like that? Yes, create room. And it has these fold out sides, and then this central station. It has a table that folds down, and then there's more shelves and storage underneath. So it's kind of floor to ceiling shelving. This is all my smaller cuts of fabric, fat quarters, and so on, maybe a few half yards. My scrap philosophy is it has to be at least 2.5 inches square, which is the size for English paper piecing, a 1-inch hexagon. But if it's smaller than that, and I really love it, I will still keep it. But anything that's smaller than a palm or a palm's width will go into my scrap fabrics. I've got an assortment of bits and bobs here, which are mostly works in progress, including the breadboard that I intend to drill a hole in for Charlotte's cat tree. It's my ironing board, which has actually got some space to iron on it. This will usually have a work in progress or 2 on it, which is indeed the case right now. There's more fabric and my sewing machine extension table down there. And then up here, you've got some more sew together bags, my best press, whole load of bits and bobs. There's a charity quilt waiting to be quilted for my guild. And then one of these color cubes, which I do actually use quite a lot if I'm planning something. The final bit of my studio is hidden behind these massive, I've forgotten what they're called, they're like stable doors that slide back and forth extremely stickily. And in here we've got all sorts of quilts. Let me see if this will, there we go. All sorts of quilts and quilt tops ready to go. There's also the larger cuts of fabric in here. There's my projector. And then this is my scrap storage. I divide up by color, and some of the color bags are in the other room at the moment. And then I'll stuff scraps in there. You can see some of my shibori dyeing just there. I'll stuff scraps in there until it feels like it's got too messy, and then I'll go back and sort all the new scraps into the color bags as well. So that's everything I wanted to show you. My name is Byrne, and I've enjoyed showing you my studio. If you want to get in touch with me, then bbyrne.com will do it. And of course, I'm also the lead of Global Quilt Connection. So you can always reach me there at globalquiltconnection.com. Thanks for watching.
So it's wonderful to be here and talking to Byrne of Global Quilt Connection. And what is the name of your business?
It's just Byrne. Yes.
Byrne.
I'm at bbyrne.com.
Byrne.com. Great. Wonderful. So I watched your studio tour and I'm very impressed. And I see that you have a Create box. Tell me about the Create box. Why do you have that as opposed to building shelves?
Well, it was a decision to invest in my long-term relationship, my marriage with my husband. We'd been going through a rocky patch. We both really committed to the relationship, and then a month later, we decided to divorce. So by then, the Create box had been ordered and was on its way. But because it is a huge piece of furniture. It's this enormous kind of closet, and it is on wheels, but you have to empty it to move. And so my thinking was that I wasn't going to buy one if I was going to be moving and ending the relationship. And so I invested instead and have now moved it, I think, 3 times, which is quite an undertaking because you have to empty everything out of it each time. And it is the equivalent of at least 3 bookcases and a table. So yes, it's something I definitely wouldn't have bought if I hadn't believed that the marriage was going to work, but it didn't. So yes, it's now this, I kind of refer to it as an albatross around my neck, that I've got to move this thing around with me. But such is the life of someone who rents rather than owning. So there you go.
Yeah, it seems like it would come in handy if you're renting rather than owning, because you can't, custom build shelves or built-in furniture or anything like that. So
it's absolutely true. And you can only temporarily put things on walls. So that's partly why I use the curtain rod. Rather than trying to mount a design wall or have permanent places to hang quilts. Because with the curtain rod, you've only got the kind of 2 places where you're adding it to the wall at either end, rather than trying to fix all sorts of things. And of course, living in California, you're constantly aware of earthquakes. And in fact, we have them about once a month, sometimes more often, fortunately minor ones. But you do need to think about attaching things securely to walls and them not toppling over and things like that when you're living in an earthquake state.
Oh, goodness, give me a good old-fashioned blizzard anytime.
I know, it's always funny when you have visitors and there's like a little sort of 4.5 or something, and they're like, oh, and looking like, should I go under a table? Should I stand in a doorway? And everyone else is just like, nah, it's nothing, just carry on as usual.
Yeah, my only earthquake I experienced was in the Philippines. That was a big one.
We used to get them all the time when I was living in Tokyo, and they were enough to like make you hold onto the table. But they've got it all sorted out there. Everything is retrofitted. The trains slow down on the metro system while the earthquake happens, and then they just pick up and off they go afterwards.
Yeah, I love it. They're very, very efficient. So, I see that you have two Janome sewing machines. What do you think about Janome? Do you like,
I,
is that your
I
favorite?
Yeah, I really like it. I grew up using a Singer, which I so wish I had kept. It kind of fell apart more or less, and I didn't realize how easy it was, relatively speaking, to get them repaired back then. And so I got rid of it rather than repairing it, which I hugely regret. This is like 20 years ago. But I started with Singers. Then I had a cheap brother when I moved to the States because I'd only just moved here. So the bigger Janome, the 6600, was the one I kind of invested in at the time, and it got the bigger neck and so on. And then it's a coincidence, really, that the one I found in the thrift store last week is also a Janome. It's kind of happy coincidence because I was able to just transfer the electric cord from one to another because it didn't have a cord. And now, I guess I am a Janome committed user. But I see other people's machines, and I've always got the FOMO and jealousy of seeing all these amazing things that can be done. I do like that with the Janome and the Brother and the Singer. I think you can interchange all the feet because they're just the clip-on feet. I know with Benina, they tend to have the specific feet, and they're not cheap either. So I'm very happy with Janome for the time being. Yes.
Right, you tend to answer questions that I have in my mind. I think you read my mind sometimes.
I think it's because I've asked everyone all these questions as well.
So I see that Charlotte was in the studio earlier today, and she's your studio assistant. What type of services does Charlotte provide?
Oh, a lot of critique. She also absolutely loves sitting on anything that has been made. And I don't know if it's because it's got my scent on it or because I've been paying attention to it. But she's definitely a quilt tester. So there's one that I did an English paper pieced large quilt top, sort of twin. No, I think it's more of a double sized actually. All hand sewn using the apple core or axe head block. And I'm now hand quilting it on the sofa in the evenings while watching TV. And the thing she really loves at the moment, because it's too hot to sit on my lap already here in California, she loves to sit on the piece that I'm not quilting, that's on the sofa next to me while I'm working away on the other end. And I know that kind of people who have their quilts in museums and galleries and so on would be horrified, but my quilt has a considerable amount of quilt hair on it. But in very specific locations, like in quadrants, as I've moved around the quilt. So there's going to definitely be some washing and brushing to be done once I've actually finished hand quilting this one.
Yeah, I think she provides a service of holding the quilt down so it doesn't like fly away when
I'm
you're
sure that's what she
hold it steady while you're hand embroidering, because you do kind of need to hold a certain amount of tension to hand embroider a quilt.
That's what she
I think
tells me.
that's very, very professional on her part. I see you also have a round robin from your quilt guild in your studio. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, it's funny actually because I'd always wanted to do a round robin. And this is where our one, at least for the San Francisco Quilt Guild, is where you make a block and then as people take it and there's like a rotation. It goes around a group. And there's a woman now called Mary Spadaro who's absolutely amazing, who organizes the round robin for the San Francisco Quilt Guild. I think we're on the third or fourth round now, so the quilt's getting quite large. And you either add a full border around, or you can, in the first round, you can turn the block on point, or you can decide just to add, like, to make it asymmetrical and just add like a corner. But I started this before the pandemic, I think 2018 or 19, because I'd always wanted to do one. Then during the pandemic, Julia McLeod, that's it, who's one of my teachers and in fact used to work with
Mhm.
Connection.
Yes.
She started a loan robin, which was a wonderful idea, where she gave us a prompt each month to complete while we were all in isolation. And then Mary picked it up after the pandemic. So we've now gone back to the round robin idea. But it's just such a fun thing. We do it every 2 months in my guild.
Mhm.
So you've got lots of time to add a border, which is definitely appreciated once you get to some of the outer rounds. And most of these quilts end up well, some people request lap sized, and so the borders are thinner, but a lot of them will end up easily double sized by the end.
Sounds great. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with Julia. So let me ask you the most important question. Tell me about the felt sausage that you have in your studio.
The salami, yes, it's up on my pin board. So this is something, initially I got one for my sister who lives in the UK because she and I have often discussed how to cope when one of us is feeling overwhelmed or when there's a huge thing to do or like a wedding to plan or something like that, or a move to happen. So I went to this project management training in the early 2000s, which was just so bizarre. This was well before Me Too or any kind of big sexual harassment type stuff had come out, other than the usuals type thing. And I'm not saying there was any sexual harassment in this, but you will understand in a minute, where this guy comes in and he is suit and tie and he's carrying a briefcase, and it's like an old school 80s briefcase, and he kind of bangs it down on the table and he goes, right, we're doing project management. This is the training I'm at. It's a full day course. He opens up his briefcase, and of course I'm expecting that there'll be like papers or manuals or something in it, but no, there's a great big salami, and it's kind of like, a big salami, and he gets it out and he just whacks it on the table and he goes, right, how would you eat this? And everyone's like, what? And he goes, how would you eat this salami? And he's going, would you try and put the whole thing in your mouth at once? And it was just bizarre. This guy, I'm sure he can't do this anymore. But anyway, so it turns out that how you eat a massive salami is not to try and do it all at once or just take a bite out of it or something. You cut it into slices and you eat it one slice at a time. And I have told my sister about this many times, and she's always like, oh God, you're going to start talking about sausages. And so one time I found this seller on Etsy, and I'm sure we can link to her in the notes underneath the video, who sold felt salamis. And so I sent my sister one for her birthday one year. And it arrived, of course, and she showed it to me because I think the woman is in Europe somewhere. And she makes amazing felt play food for kids. That's what it's for. This isn't a project management tool, generally speaking. But I was so impressed with the salami that she made my sister that I got myself one. And it sits up there on my pinboard and catches my eye every now and again. And I'm reminded, as if I needed a reminder, this memory is seared in my mind that whenever you've got something big or something feels overwhelming, you slice it up into, if necessary, like paper thin slices, and you eat them one at a time.
I have this picture in my head of a bunch of men standing up with their pocket knives.
Oh yeah, that's too.
Because the people I used to work with, they carried pocket knives and they stand up, let's get her done, kind of a thing. So
absolutely.
I think if you were in America, that would probably have happened.
Yes. Well, in fact, one of the things when I started teaching lots of different workshops, one of my fellow teachers, she always carries two knives because she grew up in rural areas. But she suggested that I get a Swiss Army knife because there's so many times teaching these random workshops, not just quilting, but all sorts of other things, where you just don't know you're going to need a screwdriver or you're going to need a knife or you're going to need, something for getting the stones out of horses' hooves. So
Exactly.
having a Swiss Army knife, I always carry one now whenever I'm going on a workshop.
That's good. Hopefully you remember to put it in your checked-in luggage instead of the carry-on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be a problem.
Odd that we can bring knitting needles but no knives. So tell me, what are you looking forward to next Global Quilt Connection? I know we're working on several things together.
Oh, there's so much coming up. So obviously there's all these studio tours, but we're also
Mhm.
having the Quilters product showcase later on in September. I think it's the 15th, but it'll be on our website anyway. And that's going to be a great opportunity to do a little bit of shopping and find out about all the new shop products that are out in the world. Oh, here she comes. She's back. My threat to pick her up, which she hates, didn't hold her off for very long. And then we're also looking at, I'm so excited about this. I was thinking about it all weekend. We're also looking at doing a Pets on Quilts calendar at the end of the year, which I'm very excited about. And then, not to mention, of course, we have the October All-Star Sampler Platter, which is coming back again, which I will be teaching in this time. I was just hosting last time, but I'm going to do double duty this time. And we're going to welcome back Lyric Kennard, who's the founder of Global Quilt Connection. And she'll also be teaching. So yes, a huge amount to look forward to.
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking forward to all that too. I love going, like you and I went to the trade show in the spring and we got to see all the new products. And so that's going to be a way for us to share that bounty of
Absolutely.
experiences to be able to
Absolutely.
have a quilters product showcase and feature some of the people that we met when we were in Chicago.
Yes, and this is one of the people that I'm hoping will agree. I've just emailed them, but this is a craft labeler, and this
Oh wow.
spoke to me. It's got the little alphabet letters that you can move around.
Mhm.
It really spoke to me because I remember those kind of things when I was a kid and kind of printing silly messages to your friends. But it's also got the ability to add like little washing instructions, and
Mhm.
little symbols and things. And
Oh, I
I
love
just
it.
think this is lovely. This is actually available now. But I got this out and started playing with it at the weekend, having I picked it up back in April, was it that we went? So it's been in the box for a while, but I'm finally using it. Yes, and they're one of the people that, like I say, that I'm hoping will be there showing us their products.
Great. I'm looking forward to that too. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So remind us where we can find you.
Yes, absolutely. So I am B Byrne and I'm at bburn.com. And then I'm also on Instagram as B Byrne Artist.
Mhm. Great. I like to scroll occasionally.
Yes.
CB Byrne artist. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to. What is she stalking me? All right. Great. So, and you can also be found at info@globalquiltconnection.com
Of
and
course.
if or
Yes,
b@globalquiltconnection.com.
absolutely. Yes, we are the
Great.
dream team between the two of us.
Yep. Every email dumps into the same email box and you watch all of them.
I do.
All right. Well, it's really wonderful to talk to you.
Yes, you too. Thank you so
And
much for this.